welcome back to another video. Today we have a special guest with us. This is Mittens. We thought it was only fitting for Snow White, except I think she wants to go back in her cage, so we're gonna put her back in there. So we had the wonderful privilege of going to see the live action Snow White. And let me tell you, it lives up to all the hate.
I was trying to be as hopeful as I could be. And there were parts that were cool and I liked it, but most of it just went off the deep end.
Unfortunately, we were really trying to stray away from all the hate that it was getting, especially since it hadn't even come out yet. But unfortunately, it's just as bad, if not worse, than all of the bad things you've been hearing about it.
But we are going to be comparing the original Snow White to the live action Snow White and see if there are some redeemable qualities about the movie and if some of it is just too crazy and bizarre for the actual story of Snow White.
So that being said, there will be spoilers ahead. So if you haven't watched it yet and you're planning on watching it, just save this video to watch a little bit later. So it started out strong in the beginning, I will say. They did keep the original storybook opening and things like that, but going straight after that storybook opening, they already strayed away from the original by introducing her mother and father, but also putting the idea in your head that Snow White is going to be this leader and one day save her kingdom, which couldn't be a bad thing. Like, if they wanted to change it a little bit, I understand that, but this ends up becoming the entire realm of the story, which makes it stray completely away from the original Snow White. It's like you're not even watching the same movie.
With all the new story that they're adding into the movie, there's also a new song, Where the Good Things Grow, and it's just kind of a song about the village and it gets everything going as the start of the movie. It's kind of a thing that Disney is doing now in their newer movies. They have like this big beginning song to start off the film like they did in Wish. It was fine. There's nothing wrong about any of this. It just was a little bit different. But then they headed into the castle, and this is where we see Jonathan, the bandit. And he's a new character. He basically takes over the prince's role.
So after that, there's still a lot that goes on. There's another new song. Unfortunately, they only kept 2 songs from the original, which is Whistle While You Work and the Hi Ho, Hi Ho. But they even added some changes to those songs. Unfortunately, like I said, those are the only 2 songs that they kept. It was honestly insane to me.
There was another song. It was just the dance sequence where the dwarfs are playing their instruments and they're dancing with Snow White. But that whole scene is completely different because it also leads into a new song and has a bunch of other characters added in.
Yeah, there were a ton of new songs added. Not saying that they were terrible songs, but it just was completely straying away from the original Snow White story, which I find very disappointing just because that was the first animated Disney movie as well. It just was not like the original at all. And if you're going to do that, I think you should make a new princess movie, because I don't believe Rachel Zegler deserves all the hate she gets. She didn't do a great job in the interviews in the beginning, but she is a phenomenal actress, I will say. And I think she did a great job portraying the character that they gave her to portray. But I think they should have made a new princess movie rather than recreating Snow White, just because it was highly disappointing and not like the original at all. But going back to comparing from the original, the queen sends one of her guards out to kill Snow White. He does come back. In the original, it's with a pig's heart. He comes back with an apple.
So although that differed after this, when he tells her to go run into the forest and never come back, they did a really good job at this scene when she runs into the forest, because there's the dark force that appears and there's a bunch of scary things coming at her, and it really portrays that good to the original. And then once she gets out of the dark forest and all the animals are surrounding her, it's a really cool scene with all the animals coming together. So that was a good job on Disney's part. And even after, she goes to the dwarf's house, and that scene is pretty much the same as well. She enters and she falls asleep on the bed, and the dwarfs come home after, and that's when they sing Hi Ho, which also differs a little bit in the song. They talked more about the dwarfs and showed off their personalities in the song. I think that's perfectly fine for a remake.
Yeah, I was happy with the things like that. And I think they did do a great job with all the dwarfs and the way they interacted with each other. And they definitely showed their personalities for which dwarf they were. Also, the CGI was a little scary, but I am glad that they changed them back to dwarfs, and they did do a great job portraying their personalities throughout the film. The one thing that was a little weird was they made Dopey talk. It was something.
Yeah,
to say the least.
I was expecting it because he starts whistling, and they just kind of made it seem like he's gonna end up talking at the end of it. A couple new additions that I thought were perfectly fine because it just adds on some backstory to the characters was the dwarfs said that they're 274 years old. That's not the original, but I don't really think that matters. It's kind of just a fun thing, like, oh, they're these magical dwarfs that have been around since forever. It kind of adds to the whimsical nature of Snow White, so I'm perfectly fine with that.
One thing that they did add to the dwarfs as well was they had some sort of like magical power in the mines where their hand would glow and they would push on it and everything would glow in the mines. It was kind of hard to tell what it was. I think that was kind of another unnecessary ad.
It just didn't need to be there,
Yeah.
and it didn't explain it. And it's not like it really matters because it was just there and then it was gone.
But it's the small things that add to it and you're just like, oh God.
But that was a cool scene. It was very cool in the mines. They did a really good job.
It was very pretty, I will say. Like a lot of the things, the way that they portrayed the dwarfs' little cottage and stuff was very accurate and very pretty. One of the songs that I will say was a very good song was Waiting on a Wish, and I believe that they were trying to replace the I'm wishing song with that song, Waiting on a Wish. And I do think, like I said, it was a great song and Rachel Zegler did a great job. It just wasn't fitting for Snow White.
It was fitting for the new story they made because it was talking about her wanting to lead the castle and be more like her father. But I still think they could have added the Wishing Well song, and they didn't need to take out other songs as well. I thought the new songs were fine. They were cool, but it didn't need to replace the original ones.
Well, it's really just because they replaced the Prince figure. Like I'm wishing is talking about, I'm wishing for the one I love to find me today. So it's just because they completely changed the story so much that they couldn't even have the classic songs in there because that's how much they changed the story.
Yeah. Heading back to the castle with the evil queen, the huntsman comes back and the queen finds out that he didn't actually kill Snow White. And so now she has her own new villain song. The villain song was probably my least favorite throughout the film. Maybe some people liked it and it wasn't really harmful to the story, so it's okay.
Skipping forward in the story a little bit, some other similarities. When she makes the poison apple, she does say like the same spell to make the poison apple, but she doesn't do it while making the potion, which I thought was a big missed opportunity as well. Even when she pulls the apple out of the potion, it doesn't even do this thing. They changed it completely to make it more realistic, I guess.
They made it like an actual skull and it like got rotten and then it turned back into the normal apple.
For the big things like that, you don't need to change that.
Yeah, those are
big missed opportunities where you're actually sticking to the story, but then they still strayed away by trying to change it. Then she does end up turning into an ugly old lady like she does in the original. She goes to visit Snow White in the cottage like she does in the original, but the way she approaches her is completely different. Snow White did end up temporarily dying when she took a bite from the apple, and in the end, Jonathan does come, give her true love's kiss to save her. But then the story goes on for her to save her kingdom and eventually reign over the kingdom. The way that the evil queen died was not the same either.
The evil queen admits to having actually killed her father, which is a little bit of backstory, which is again fine. It's just a little different. The way that she died, rather than falling off the cliff with the dwarfs chasing her, the dwarfs never even chase her. She just makes it back safely to the kingdom. But in this version, she dies from breaking the mirror and she withers away into the broken mirror and she's just gone.
One thing that I thought was kind of funny as well is the original cast that was supposed to be the 7 magical creatures before they re-added the dwarfs were still in the movie, but they were bandits with Jonathan. But it just felt pretty thrown in there because they had really no backstory or anything like that. It just did feel pretty forced to have them thrown in there like that since basically their roles got taken away.
We don't usually like to talk negative about movies on the channel and that we didn't like them, but we're just going to be honest, and this movie did live up to all the hate it got. It was a fine movie, just not in the sense that it was a good remake of Snow White. I personally had moments that I actually did enjoy. I liked some of the sequences, but overall it was just too out there and it wasn't even well done.
But we are super grateful that we got to see this movie, and we did end up enjoying getting to go see it anyway. We will be doing the same with some other movies coming out like Lilo and Stitch and Moana. We even got Zootopia coming out pretty soon. Very exciting stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.